Hello everyone, my name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry, Chapter 5. It is finally the night of the Watanagashi again, actually, but present day. See, the first time that we experienced it here in Chapter 5 was, well, a year before a lot of what we've experienced so far in the series. And now we're back to this point, except through Shion's perspective, which we know is going to be different. I'm actually really excited because now is where I feel like we might be getting some, maybe not necessarily answers, but maybe some clues, maybe some ideas as to being what could be going on, if that makes any sense, because things will hit the fan. We know that Shion is going to go missing along with many other individuals if this is following Chapter 2. So, what will happen after tonight's events? I'm very excited. Let's read on.
それより、奉納演舞がよく見えるとこってまだ遠いのか？
え？奉納演舞がよく見えるなんて誰が言いました？
We made it to the ritual storehouse, and Keiichi was baffled by the whole situation. Our timing had been perfect. I could see Tomitake-san picking the lock. I take it we'll kind of like skip through a little bit of the things here so we're not like just going through the same conversations and such that we've already been through. If anything, things will be different whenever there's things to commentate on and literally anything different that happens, meaning from Shion's perspective. Even though Keiichi must have been curious, he insisted that we shouldn't go in, but I talked him into it anyway. He was quick to change his mind when Tomitake-san joined in. Homies stick together, you know? It was completely dark inside, so Takano-san lit a battery-powered lantern. A small entry space appeared before us.
真っ暗だね。みんな転ばないように気をつけるんだよ。
ご心配ありがとう。じゃあ門番をよろしくね。ここ閉めるわよ。
Takano-san closed the door with a smile as if leaving Tomitake-san out on purpose.
やれやれ。じゃあみんなゆっくり楽しんでおいで。
No, I don't know about that one. As soon as the heavy door was closed, we were surrounded by a quiet darkness. All we could rely on was Takano-san's lantern.
大丈夫よ。予備電池も入ってるアウトドア仕様なんだから。消えたりなんかしないわよ。
Takano-san teased Keiichi a little. Keiichi in turn looked a little pale. He seemed to be able to recognize the sanctity of the building even though he wasn't from Hinamizawa.
さあ、入りましょう。よいしょっと。
After Takano-san opened the heavy inner door, a dusty foul smell flowed out. It was like the smell of a pantry that hadn't been opened in years and the smell of a fish market mixed together. I didn't know exactly how to describe it, but it was a bad smell. From listening to the echo of our footsteps, I could tell that this room was much bigger than the one we were just in. When Takano-san raised the lantern, I could clearly see just how big it was. At the far side of the wall, there was a statue of some kind of god staring down at us intruders. The way it was lit by the lantern gave it a powerful appearance, and it scared me.
あれがHinamizawaの守り神。
Oh, I'm
お社
aware.
様よ。
I'm definitely aware. I looked up at the statue which was holding its religious ornaments. If Satoshi-kun's disappearance really was a curse, I couldn't forgive this god. I found myself irritated by the way the statue looked down at me. Damn you, Oyashiro-sama. If you really made Satoshi-kun disappear, I'll never forgive you. Never. Keiichi didn't seem to understand the significance of the storehouse. He looked bored. Oh yeah, torture tools everywhere. I don't get the context, so it's not really my thing. Takano-san noticed that and took out her scrapbooks to show him the brutal history of ancient Hinamizawa. Please don't bring us through that again. I've heard that story already, so I decided to walk around by myself. Since I knew the significance of all these tools, I felt a little nauseated. Though they certainly wouldn't jump out at me, I still found them intimidating. They looked as if they were craving for fresh blood after not having been used in hundreds of years. All the tools looked similar to the ones I saw in the underground torture room at the Sonozaki main house. Do they actually use the same... They don't use the same backdrop here, do they? I could be wrong. Maybe it's a similar one. If those tools were the progenies of torture implements, then these would be their ancestors. All the implements here looked old, and I doubted they could really be used. They weren't kept maintained like the ones at the Sonozaki house. So did that mean they shouldn't scare me? Yeah, I'm sure like all the spiky shit and all that would not be able to impale anybody anymore. I'm pretty sure they just like turned to dust if they were ever used. No, on the contrary. And they told me that the cruel rituals were indeed performed in this village at one point. Now that I found scary. What Takano-san told me was the truth. When I stopped, Satoshi-kun also stopped behind me one step later. Oh, that's right, that's another thing from the last episode, guys. Apparently, Shion has lost her marbles, and she thinks that the footsteps and whatever presence that's been around her since a little bit ago is like a spirit of Satoshi or some shit. Like, my prediction is that, oh, it's probably like the same sort of thing that Keiichi's been feeling, or that had felt in previous chapters, what Rena felt, what Satoshi himself felt, but they all kind of related that to like Oyashiro. And Shion is just like, no, that's Satoshi. I felt no emotional change in Satoshi-kun. I couldn't tell if he was feeling something or not. I knew he was there, but I had no idea how he was feeling. I felt scared of him for the first time. If he could answer me, I want to ask him, who demoned you away?
ね、サトシ君、聞いてる?
I couldn't tell if he heard me or not. He left, as if he didn't hear anything. I could tell that he'd been sulky ever since we got here. Well, shit, I would be too. Not as a ghost, but just, I would hate to be here. I suddenly felt lonely, so I looked for him while walking around. I realized then that there was an altar in front of the statue. He might be there. It was a clean altar. An altar ornamented with religious artifacts. It was kept well maintained, and I saw no dust. That would mean, well, the flowers in the vase weren't wilting. I saw a pretty handkerchief under the vase. It looked out of place amongst everything else. I was fairly certain it was Rika Furude's handkerchief. That would mean that the storehouse is maintained daily. It wasn't a forgotten ruin buried in dust. So the brutality that dwelled in this ritual storehouse is still alive and well in Hinamizawa. That's right. Something as ambiguous as Oyashiro-sama's curse is nothing more than a simple delusion of the villagers. As Takano-san said, everything that happens in this world is done by humans. I'd accused Oyashiro-sama of demoning away Satoshi-kun. But Oyashiro-sama is just a statue made of bronze or wood. It's nothing but an icon. There are, however, human beings who would try to make that icon seem real. The series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa is the result of human action. It shouldn't be called Oyashiro-sama's curse. If Satoshi-kun was the fourth year's victim, then he was victimized by a human being who just was acting the part of a curse. Excuse me. The person who demoned away Satoshi-kun must not be very far from me. I still think it is the Sonozakis, or at least somebody connected. It has to be. It really does. Satoshi's not alive, I'm pretty sure. The truth behind Satoshi-kun's disappearance was not so far from my grasp. Uh-oh. I was startled by the sound. It sounded like somebody had dropped something. I looked over at Takano-san and Keiichi. Takano-san was still lecturing him. Did she drop her scrapbook or something? Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay, so this is... Okay, I brought this up in the last episode because I knew this was going to happen. I totally forgot about it. Yeah, so Shion does experience some weird shit that happens here. She mentioned that there was like some loud banging or something, and she brought that up with Keiichi afterwards, but he was like, huh? And I was like, what? So, yeah, this is all her. The sound came from right behind me, not from them. I'd never heard Satoshi-kun do that. It sounded like somebody was stomping on the floor in frustration. What is it? So it's not like the roof or anything, like we're hearing it on the floor. The sound continued, ignoring my question. Though I heard it nearby, it sounded as though a child was hopping on a wooden floor somewhere distant.
どうしたのサトシ君。何か怒ってるの
I couldn't read his expressions. I thought he was mad, but I didn't sense any emotion from him at all. Was he mad that I touched the altar? Maybe you weren't supposed to do that. Yeah, there's a lot of things you're not supposed to do here. It's not that I'd been able to communicate with Satoshi-kun in a concrete way. I just talked to him. I was never expecting him to react like that. I didn't sense a willingness to communicate from this creepy sound. And then a chill ran up my spine. I felt as if all my pores were opening. I'd been thinking that it was Satoshi-kun stomping on the floor. Hey, you're Satoshi-kun, aren't you? The sound stopped when I asked that. It wasn't a yes or a no, just silence. Satoshi-kun wouldn't scare me like that. I realized suddenly that the sound hadn't come from Satoshi-kun. A cold shiver shot through my feet and I sprung a step backward. The sound had come from right there. Even though I jumped back, it was still a few meters away. Satoshi-kun would sometimes let me hear his footsteps when I walked. But if that wasn't Satoshi-kun, then there was no guarantee that I'd hear its footsteps. So that invisible being could already be in front of my eyes, and I just wouldn't see it. I forgot everything and ran, straining my ears as much as possible for any sound, listening for any footsteps pursuing me. I ran right into Keiichi and clung to him, timidly turning back to look. The dimly lit area before the altar was quiet, like nothing was happening. But seeing that chilling dark stillness, realizing I was just in that space, made me even more frightened now.
どうしたよ、シオン。ひょっとして怖くなった
Keiichi made fun of me. Even though he'd looked horrified just a little while ago, he now looked satisfied to see me scared too.
お化け屋敷で女の子がしがみついてくるのはデフォじゃないですか。まんざらでもないくせに。ほらほら、行きましょう。高野さんに置いてかれます。
I pretended to be fine, but I wasn't sure if I was able to hide my fear entirely. Sorry if I sound congested, like I had a wicked sneeze before I started recording and it just kind of fucked me up. The footsteps were chasing me. They were outside the illumination of the lantern as if they couldn't go into the light. The presence never left us, however. It followed us like a fourth member of the party. Sometimes it made a stomping sound as if wanting some recognition, but neither Takano-san nor Keiichi seemed to notice it. It was possible for Takano-san to be ignoring it, but Keiichi would never ignore it. If he could hear it, he would have said something. So just like with Satoshi-kun, only I could hear it. What was this thing that was making me so scared? Was it Satoshi-kun in a bad mood? Or was it possible that the presence I believed to be Satoshi-kun might not have been him at all? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We could have just been losing our fucking mind. A ghost of some other sort could be following us. That's sane, right? Damn, now it's flashing us with a mystical flashbang? What are you upset about, Satoshi-kun? Tell me if I did something wrong, I'll apologize. What if it's like Morse code? If you aren't Satoshi-kun, then where did he go? When did you take his place? It's in such a weird pattern, like it's changing. That can't be Morse code.
大丈夫か
はい、全然平気ですよ。それよりケイちゃんこそ顔面蒼白でかなりヤバげかと。
なら、あまり俺の服を引っ張りすぎないでくれると嬉しいんだけどな。
あ、こりゃ失礼です。
あらあら、私はお邪魔かしら
Yes. This is like a popular makeout spot. I decided to engage in the conversation to help myself ignore the sound from behind. I didn't hear the sound as much, and it became a bit more distant. Yeah, I shouldn't pay attention to it. It wouldn't bother me if I didn't hear it. I should just ignore the noise.
で、高野さんはその風習が実は現代にも残っているんじゃないかと思って研究をしてるんです。そうでしたよね。
God damn.
これ本当に内緒なんだからね。シオンちゃんは理解のある人だから話したけど、他の村人には聞かれたくないの。下手をしたら罰当たり者ってことで袋叩きにされかねないんだから。
Like tonight. She smiled at me like a witch.
前原くんも内緒にしてね。知られたら私、お社様のたたりに遭うか、生贄にされちゃうかするかもしれない。たたりなら、今年はどんな死に方をさせられちゃうのかしら。生贄なら、鬼ヶ淵の沼に生きたまま沈められちゃうのかしら。そういえば今夜よね。お社様のたたりがある夜は。
Oh, I'm sure it's gonna be pretty hot. Get it? It certainly is. If the curse strikes for a 5th time, it'll happen tonight. Jesus. Takano-san pulled out an old scrapbook from her paper bag and then started turning the pages. She opened it to the page with that one article. It was the article about the brutal murder of the Watanagashi victim. It happened in the Meiji era.
これは実際にあったお話よ。明治の終わり頃にね。鬼ヶ淵村で身元不明の惨殺死体が発見されたんですって。
God damn, it's like whatever is here is trying to stop us from listening. Like, don't go any further, just stop.
かくも無残かつ残虐非道を。
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that theory. Hey, you guys seriously don't hear that. It's freaking loud. How can you not hear it? Ah, hell, it's freaking noisy. Cut it out already. And the next moment, we all heard a squeaking noise. We turned around in surprise. It was just Tomitake-san opening the door.
驚かせちゃったかな。
あら、二郎さんも見たくて我慢できなくなったかしら。ここ素敵な拷問道具の宝庫よ。
僕は遠慮させてもらうよ。生来ね、こういうのは苦手なんだ。
Takano-san laughed as if making fun of Tomitake-san for being such a scaredy cat.
それより、演舞とセレモニーが終わって、みんな沢の方に降りていったよ。あと何分もしないうちにお祭りは終わっちゃう。
Time was up. I'd never expected that Tomitake-san would save me from this nightmare. His face suddenly looked heroic. He is a good-looking man.
ケイチ君も出るかい？
もう十分に見ましたので。シオン、もういいだろ。出ようぜ。綺麗な空気が吸いたいよ。
同感です。出ましょう。
I went into the entry room and turned around. Takano-san was taking photos in a mad rush, though our time was up. I didn't hear that sound anymore. I didn't feel that presence. I didn't feel Satoshi-kun either. But somehow I wasn't too sad about that. Even if he followed me out here, I wouldn't be able to tell if it was really him or somebody else. I mean, that was the reality the entire time if we're gonna believe in ghosts. I hate to say it, but it's true. If ghosts or some spiritual beings actually exist in this story, which I've kind of ruled out, then, well, shit. That's all I can say. It could have been anybody. Defilers, and we have a picture of a hoe or a plow or whatever you want to call it. And it's a little bloody. Let's view our tips, which have mostly just been notebook pages, which is fine. That underground torture room is officially called the Underground Ritual Storehouse. So do torture room and ritual storehouse mean the same thing? According to Takano-san's theory, bloody rituals, including Watanagashi, have been passed down among the three families, even after the Meiji era. The rituals are always ready to be performed. Their form of worship always revolved around torture, so Hinamizawa's history involved a great deal of human slaughter. Takano-san's theory is correct. The underground storehouse at the Sonozaki house looked well maintained. Takano-san is right about that too. Since the Sonozaki family and the Furude family both have ritual storehouses, the Kimiyoshi family must have one too. After all, these ancient and brutal customs are still handed down through the generations. I should remain armed with the knowledge that occult events are still secretly being performed in this cursed village. Well, yeah, definitely. Even I felt pretty prepared for that. The sanctity of the ritual storehouse is one of the most prominent elements of the worship, or in the worship of a Yashiro-sama. Of course I knew that since I'm originally from Hinamizawa, but violating the sanctity is actually a more serious problem than I thought. Takano-san's research shows that the history of the ritual storehouse goes way back. The ritual implements within have long been viewed as inviolable objects, which is why it was strictly forbidden to enter. Takano-san's theory says that Watanagashi was once a public execution, performed to stabilize the reign of the three families, rather than a purely religious ritual. If so, the ritual should hardly be called sacred. Under those circumstances, the implements should have been despised as symbols of hatred and fear. When implements or instruments of fear are too visible, it only creates a reign of terror. But keep them as hidden as possible and they gain divinity. Many say they would become tainted if the layman touched them. The only reason for that was to preserve their false prestige through secrecy, since they would lose their sanctity if revealed before the common folk. In other words, the true identity of the ritual storehouse's sacredness was fear. That was the true emotion ruling over this village. I believe it. Fear and maybe a few other things, but fear is up there. The reason why Takano-san and Tomatake-san were cursed is because they broke into the ritual storehouse. I don't know how the villagers found out about it. Maybe somebody was watching. Maybe there was an anti-theft alarm. Either way, our intrusion must have been reported to the highest level of the cursed system. That's because, considering the distance between the village and the site where Takano-san's body was found, she must have been killed right after we came out of the ritual storehouse. It was done very quickly. It's possible that a special assassination team exists for this purpose, or that the plan had been set up a long time ago. They might have been secret agents of the Sonozaki family, but the latter sounds more valid. But if so, who would have been the victim if nobody broke into the ritual storehouse? I feel like it still would have been Tomatake-san and Takano, both being outsiders, Tomatake seemingly poking his nose in people's business, and, well, Takano-san doing that but like much more bluntly. So I guess we kind of skipped forward a little bit again. My relatives gathered at the Sonozaki house after the festival to have a little party, and maybe we haven't. I mingled with my uncles and had fun. I was trying to get rid of my eerie moments or memories of the ritual storehouse. Mion was acting as the successor, so I tried to stay away from her. I'm sure she would feel weird if I talked to her in a formal way. Yeah, probably. In consideration of the hag's old age, we ended the party around 11 p.m. We all helped to clean up, with the women washing the dishes in the kitchen, and the men folding the tables and putting them away in a storeroom. It only took about 30 minutes, and then everyone left, one after another. By then, Mion was no longer acting as the Sonozaki successor, and was back to being her normal self. Maybe I overexerted a little. I was lying on the tatami floor. Kasai asked me if I could get in the car, so I told him I'd rather not move anymore.
おねえ、今日泊まってってもいい？ここで寝ちゃいたい。バッチャに見つかると怒られるよ。で、それよりシオン、明日は学校じゃないの？明日は開校記念日だからいいの。
Wait, you can have a school holiday if it's the anniversary? Damn, all my schools that I went to Elementary, middle, high, college, university. They never did this shit. All of them
あ
are
んたの
lame.
学校、開校記念日って年に何回あるわけ？
Oh, never mind.
まあ、いっか。じゃあ、笠井さん、シオンは今夜はうちで預かります。
わかりました。ではよろしくお願いいたします。
ほら、シオン、起きて。ここで寝てるとバッチャに怒られるって。
I have a bad feeling about us staying here.
肩を貸すから奥に行こう。私の布団貸してあげるから。ありりー、おねー。
I have a really bad feeling. Like, we know what's to come. My alter ego told me that I'm in a demon's stomach. I wouldn't have woken up if I hadn't heard that voice, but when I stop, he always walks one extra step. I might not have woken up at all. Alright. Whatever that means. Wait, that was notebook page 165. We were in the 170s in the tips. Right? Whatever. I didn't remember much after that. I was probably brought to Mion's room and immediately crawled into the futon. After a while, Mion got her futon ready next to me, turned the lights off, and went to sleep. At least that's what I thought. I got up and turned the lights on. Mion's futon was empty. The futon felt cold. Mion must have left it a while ago. Did she go to the bathroom? No, the closest bathroom was right there down the hallway. The light in the bathroom was off. Where did she go? The ticking on of the clock was loud and annoying in this silence. The hands pointed to a little before 3 a.m. I was left alone all of a sudden, in this late night. I felt the eeriness of the ritual storehouse coming back to me, after almost managing to forget it in the ruckus earlier. I tried to sense my surroundings. In this house, there shouldn't be an eerie atmosphere, strange noises, or footsteps. I stepped out into the freezing cold hallway to look for Mion. When I did, I immediately noticed light coming from one of the nearby rooms. That room belonged to the hag. The hag went to sleep early and woke up early. She was very strict about her bedtime, so it was strange to see her light on in the middle of the night. I could hear voices too. Those voices belonged to the hag and Mion. I creeped up to the room and listened to their conversation. Since it was the middle of the night, I could hear their words very clearly.
しゃあもねえやんな。あんの赤いのも。
Oh
ちょ
shit.
い出張りすぎやったんや。
まあね、お社様のお怒りに触れたんだから、仕方ないしね。
Mion's voice sounded as cold as the one I had heard down in the torture room. I held my breath.
警察は調べとっちゅうとろんが、すっとろん間違いなあかんね。
By those kids, I'm sure she's talking about Tomatake and Takano.
多分ね、高野さんだろうね。
My heart almost stopped. Oyashiro-sama got angry. The police are investigating. It's probably Takano-san. And what day was it today? Those words told me that something was happening. My teeth started to chatter. I desperately tried to stop them. I felt like my body was swelling up suddenly. I could no longer hear her as well. Calm down, breathe. Listen more carefully. According to Mion and the hag's conversation, another incident definitely took place. The victims were Takano-san and Tomatake-san. From what I could tell, both Mion and the hag thought it had made sense that whatever it was happened to them. No. I need to think more calmly. They did say they deserved it for making Oyashiro-sama angry. Did they say Takano-san and Tomatake-san made Oyashiro-sama angry? How did they make Oyashiro-sama angry? They knew. My body started to shake. They knew we snuck into the ritual storehouse. Okay, so those tips were definitely, like, from the future. Then would that mean Keiichi and I were also subject to Oyashiro-sama's curse? Suddenly a phone rang. The phone was by the front door. The front door was opposite the hag's room, farther down the hall. The ringing echoed throughout the long hallway. It sounded so eerie, almost like it was coming from hell. That was when I felt someone behind me. Of course, there was nobody there when I turned around, but there was someone there a moment ago. I didn't know if it was Satoshi-kun. I didn't sense any emotions, so I couldn't tell. I also didn't know how long it had been there. It was as if that somebody was watching me, listening in on their conversation. That was the feeling I got. It couldn't be Satoshi-kun. Satoshi-kun would never be that intimidating or scary. My mind turned all red, like it was suffused with blood.
みーちゃんにはないひたひたと
Oh, now we're thinking about Rena's words,
ずっ
of
と足
course.
音がついてきて夜は枕元にまで立たれて見下ろされる経験
I remembered what Rena Ryugu had said on that rainy day.
そうならばみーちゃんは大丈夫お社様には怒られない
If Oyashiro-sama wasn't angry, nobody would follow me. So what did this mean? Ever since we snuck into that shrine storage, something had been following me? What is it? Calm down, calm down. That's right. Rena wasn't talking about me. She was talking about Satoshi-kun. That's what happened to Satoshi-kun.
サトシ君が体験していることはすべてお社様のたたりの前触れなの
But that's what she believes. That's right. That's why he encountered the curse of Oyashiro-sama.
誰かが遠くからじっと伺っている誰かがずっとつけてくる
A creepy feeling crawled up and spread across my back.
誰かがいつも自分のすぐ後ろから見ているやがて足音は常に自分とずれて一つ余計に聞こえるようになるの
I swallowed loudly. It's almost as though Rena Ryugu was predicting what would happen to me. Had Rena been talking about Satoshi-kun back then? Or had she actually been talking about me?
やがて後ろのそれは自分の家の中にまでついてくるようになるそしてお布団に入って明かりを消してもずっと枕元から見下ろしてるのただただ黙ってじーっと
I knew by now that there was no mistake. No matter how I looked at it, she had been talking about me. Yes, me. It had been about me. The curse of Oyashiro-sama. What is the curse of Oyashiro-sama? That was when I actually felt something for real. Somebody grabbed my collar. No voice came out. I wanted to scream, but all I could do was to open and close my mouth as if something was stuck in my throat. Oh, hello. It was Mion. She looked even colder than how she'd looked in the underground torture room. It only made sense that she'd come out into the hallway to answer the phone. Yeah, what are we doing? I tried to come up with an excuse. However, the way Mion looked at me was so cold. Even if I really had run into her by accident, I could tell by the look in her eyes that she wouldn't believe me. I felt cold sweat all over my body, and I couldn't even move my fingers.
ごめん
I apologized. I could have said something to get myself out of the situation, but the apology came out first. But Mion didn't appear to hear me. She walked to the front door, still holding my collar. Damn, she's strong. The phone was still ringing. A normal person doesn't usually let a phone ring so long at this time of night. Yeah, usually a phone doesn't even ring this long. The phone call itself didn't seem real to me. Mion picked up the phone.
ミオンですそうですかわかりましたそちらの対応はよろしくお願いしますそれから一切の口封じをよろしくお願いしますええでは
Mion put down the phone after a short conversation. What did she mean, make sure nobody talks about this? Who called anyway? Mion put her forehead to mine and spoke to me. Uh-oh.
聞いてた
No, not really. Which conversation was she talking about? Yeah, if it was the phone conversation, not at all. Well, she had to be God damn, I cannot speak today. Well, she had to be talking about the one with the hag. If I said yes, what would happen to me?
何のことかわかんない
Mion pulled my collar, pressed her nose on mine, and continued to speak.
聞こえた通りです富武さんと高野さんがお社様のたたりに遭われました本当にお気の毒なことです
It was like I was talking to myself in a mirror. But what I was saying in the mirror was ever so cold.
おねお社様のたたりって富武さんは自らの手で喉をかきむしってお亡くなりになりました。高野さんは遠くの山奥でドラム缶に詰められて焼き殺されたそうで、実にお気の毒です。
Yeah, very. Tomitake-san clawed at his throat until he died? What? Takano-san was burned to death in an oil drum? What? I felt something furry crawl up my spine, sorry. I also felt like my stomach was turning upside down. I didn't feel any strength in my legs. If Mion let go of my collar, I'd probably collapse on the spot.
なんでそんな死に方したのかな。わかりませんか、シオン。
I'm asking you because I don't know.
わかんないよ。理由なんて一つしかないじゃないですか。
Please don't talk as if I already know the answer.
何の理由かな。
My heart was pounding. I felt that my next breath would be so bloody and hot that I'd choke on it.
そんなこともわかんないのですか。
It's because they made Oyashiro-sama angry. The first year it was the manager of the damn construction site. The second year it was the traitors to the village. The third year it was the pacifist. The fourth year it was the relatives of the traitors. I'd always thought the victims were people who had something to do with the dam conflict. Since I didn't do anything against the village during the dam conflict, I assumed I was safe. I should have known. I should have known everything would be the curse of Oyashiro-sama. I knew Oyashiro-sama's anger was the curse of Oyashiro-sama. I knew Oyashiro-sama would get angry if I snuck into the ritual storehouse. But since I wasn't held responsible in any way for the dam conflict, I never thought I would be the victim of the curse. Did I ever think there would be an incident in the 5th year? Did I ever think that I'd be the victim in that 5th year incident? Tomitake-san snuck into the storehouse, and he clawed at his own throat until he died. Takano-san was burned to death in an oil drum. It must be a lie. It couldn't be true. Even if it was forbidden, it was just a space for storing old torture or some old torture implements. How could they be killed for just sneaking in there? Especially in such gruesome ways. But I thought about it again and realized that those people were absolutely capable of doing things like that. The main Sonozaki family was capable of it. The Sonozaki family had been pulling the strings behind the series of mysterious deaths. They could do it. The Sonozaki family even kidnapped the grandson of the Minister of Construction during the dam conflict. They could do it. The Sonozaki family made Satoshi-kun disappear completely. They could do it. And I'm glad we came to that realization. Because, I mean, that's what I believe. Ah, yes, static. I feel like we're back in that, awful location where static lies. Mion leaned against me before falling onto the cold hallway floor. Never mind. She collapsed rather violently. I usually didn't go to sleep with my stun gun. Oh. But since I was too tired and sleepy to get ready for bed, I still had it on me. That's where the static's from. I thought it was that music again. I had my stun gun on me. I finally understood. I didn't know who killed them exactly. Nope, the static is a part of the music. God damn it. Whose idea it was or who ordered it. I didn't even know who was actually involved. But Mion and the hag knew everything. Satoshi-kun, now I finally know. Now I know what I need to do. I will settle the score for you, Satoshi-kun. I will avenge you, Satoshi-kun. I won't be killed like you, Satoshi-kun. I walked into the hag's room. She was sitting up to take some medicine. Her back was turned to me. Mion and I are twins. If I acted like her, the hag wouldn't notice the difference. I didn't think she ever suspected me. God damn. I put my stun gun to her neck and pulled the trigger. Wow. I heard an indescribable electrical sound and the hag's lights went out. She fell in a twisted position. I didn't know how long it would take a person to regain their freedom of movement after getting knocked out with a stun gun, so I had to restrain them before they woke back up. I was unbelievably calm. What is fucking happening, dog? The key to the underground torture room was in the forbidden drawer that only the head of the family can access. Mion had told me about this once. I'd never looked for the drawer before, but I found it exactly where I thought it would be. The key was on a keychain with several of its sisters. Each key had a little plaque on it that said what it was used for. They were all in Mion's handwriting. She was an idiot for being so conscientious, but it sure helped me out. I put the keychain in my pocket and headed to the outdoor storeroom to find a cart. I found a large flashlight there as well. There was a strap on the flashlight so I could put it on my shoulder. That way, I'd have both hands free to carry Mion and the hag. What are we doing? I loaded Mion and then our grandmother onto the cart and carried them to the underground torture room. I was prepared to use the stun gun again if they woke up while I was working. But it was more powerful than I imagined, and the hag showed no signs of walking. And the music showed no signs of being, not staticky. This was the stun gun Kasai specially ordered for me when I told him I wanted a powerful one. I remembered him telling me that it was an illegally modified stun gun that I should never use, and that I should never use it for fun. I used my flashlight to find the light switch. I found it easily and turned it on. All the lights went on in the basement. Although there was now illumination, it was very dim. I moved quickly so as to finish what I needed to do before they woke up. I decided to put Mion in a cell beyond the torture room. The lights in the torture room were so bright that it was like daylight. There was a door there. I was fairly certain the cells were on the other side of that door. The proper key was here. The keys made a tinkling sound. I felt cold air coming in through the gap in the door. There must be a huge opening on the other side. I opened the door, and I saw nothing but darkness. I felt along the wall to find a light switch. I turned the light switch on, and the light bulbs lit up, revealing a huge rocky cave. It didn't look like a natural cave, it looked more like an air raid shelter. There were several hollow openings with bars across them. Those were the cells. I walked up to the closest cell and checked to see if it was strong enough to confine her. I pushed and pulled on the bars. I rammed against them with all my weight and decided they were perfectly sturdy. This was secure enough to be called a cell. I opened the lock and carried Mion in. I wasn't particularly strong, just average. I'd never thought I was strong enough to carry a whole person. But now I didn't need to pretend to be weak. I could easily lift and drag their bodies. I put Mion in the cell. She seemed to moan a little. I didn't need to check to make sure. The effect of my stun gun was wearing off. I closed the bars and turned the key in the lock. And then I ran to the hag, who must have been starting to wake up too. Fortunately, there was no sign of her regaining consciousness. She could be just fucking dead. Maybe the difference in age had something to do with it. I looked for a table to restrain her on. I found a wheelchair with the restraints for the hands and feet. I put the hag in it. Of course, she didn't resist, but her dead weight made it seem like she was a huge French doll, but one made of flesh. I put her hands on the armrests and restrained them at the wrists with the metal rings and hinges. I did the same with her feet. This must have been a wheelchair specially remodeled to restrain a person. Other than the restraints, it was a regular wheelchair. I waited for the hag to wake up. I had so many things I wanted to ask her. I didn't think she'd answer honestly, but I had plenty of tools to make her talk. Yeah, honestly, we're actually in the fucking seat, man. Like, we're ready to go if we want to get some answers. I was in no rush. When the hag had a concern, relatives took care of the problem. That was how it worked in the Sonozaki family. She was the leader of the family, so all the information they gathered would make its way to her. She must know everything that happened in Hinamizawa, including the curse of Oyashiro-sama. I heard a noise from the cell. Mion must have woken up before the hag did. Speaking of the hag, she didn't seem like she was about to wake up anytime soon, but she was restrained even if she did, so I had no need to fear. I left the hag there and headed for the cell.
シオン、これは何の真似ですか?
She talked like the successor, but she also sounded frightened. She obviously understood the situation she was in right now.
おはよう、ミオン。まさか自分が閉じ込められることになるとは思わなかった？園崎家当主代行として命じます。ここを。声色に一つ凄みが欠けますね。当主様はもっと傲慢な言い方をしなきゃね。もっとも、そういう言い方ができたとしても、今のあんたは滑稽なだけなんだけどさ。
Oh, Shion, don't get so cocky now. There was nothing funny about it, but I wanted to intimidate Mion. My laughter echoed throughout the cave. It was artificial and meaningless laughter. I heard it over and over as it echoed. It sounded as if I wasn't the only one laughing. I couldn't stand it, so I stopped. Silence filled the air. That silence almost hurt my ears, so I started to speak.
富武さんと高野さんが今年の犠牲になるとはね、思わなかった。高野さんのドラム缶に詰めて焼き殺したってのもなかなかやるね。ま、あの人はそういう死に方を自分で希望してたっぽいからね。結構満足してるかもよ。
Mion didn't say anything. She just stared at me to see how I'd proceed.
富武さんの自分で自分の喉を引き裂いたってのは何？意識をおかしくさせるような怪しいお薬でも注射したの？それともそういう死に方に見せるような道具でもあるわけ？
Mion didn't reply. I was smiling boldly, but I became impatient and finally kicked the bars. It made a violent noise. Mion jumped as if she was kicked directly.
返事がないと退屈です。私を怒らせるとどんな得が？私が知るわけないでしょ。
Mion finally replied. She was odious, but at the same time sounded pitiful.
ねえ、ミオン、次期当主様。ここまで来ちゃったんだから
I had just too many things I wanted to ask her. I wanted to ask her about me, about the incident, about the curse, about Satoshi-kun. I didn't even know where to start. Before I asked her about those, I asked her one other thing.
私に対して反抗的な態度をとっても何の得にもならないこと。
Mion glared at me silently. Because we were twins, I knew that was just a bluff.
もうここまでやっちゃった以上、私も引っ込みがつかないんで、お姉も私に容赦とか躊躇とか、そういうものをあまり期待しない方がいいかもです。
The thing is, I'm pretty sure we all thought it'd be the other way around here. Mion must have been feeling the cold sweat on her face. Although the light was dim, I could tell that she was frightened.
じゃあ聞くよ。Hinamizawa村連続開始事件。通称お社様のたたり。これってどういう意味があるの？やっぱりダム戦争のけじめってやつ？私は多分そうだと思ってる。
Mion sounded a little confused, but she answered. I felt satisfaction now that we were communicating. I continued with a smile.
思ってるって言い方が少し頼りないね。そのあたりの事情は詳しくないの？シオンだって分かってるでしょ。次期当主なんてバッチャの取り次ぎに過ぎないよ。
Yeah, right.
その当主様と意思を疎通させて以心伝心なのが次期当主様の役目でしょ。取り次ぎに過ぎないなんて信じると思う？いつも身近にいる私だってたまにバッチャが何を考えてるのかわからない時があるもん。何でもかんでも私が理解してるわけじゃない。じゃあお社様のたたりってのはあいつが全部独断で決めてるわけなんだ。次期当主様と相談して決めてるのかと思ったよ。やばい話は全部バッチャが一人で決めてる。私なんか預かり知る余地もない。でもばあさんの独断だとしたってあいつはあんたを介してやり取りしてるわけでしょ。そのあんたが何も知らないなんてあるはず。違うよ。私なんかを介していない。私にだってよくわからないんだけど、 私が陽の部分を取り継いでるとしたら、陰の部分を取り継いでる誰かがいると思う。誰？その影の部分の取り継ぎって。知らない。誰かを招いて話してるとことか、電話をしているとことか見たことない？強いて言えば、毎年お社様のたたりの時期になると連絡量がどっと増える相手ね。わかんない。心当たりなんかないよ。
Mion shook her head.
まあいいや。じゃあ質問を変えるね。今年のたたりの富武さんと高野さんは、ダム戦争に直接関係してないのに、なぜ犠牲に選ばれたの？やっぱり、西宮殿に忍び込んだから？
As soon as Mion heard the words ritual storehouse, her expression shifted.
西宮殿に？フルテ神社の西宮殿を犯したの？ありゃ、知ってるとばかり。そんなことをしたら、バカ、当然だよ。
The way she's acting here. Mion muttered bitterly while shaking her head repeatedly. Mion's reaction made me realize the true meaning of the forbidden storehouse for ritual implements. The ritual storehouse is a sacred building, so nobody can go inside. The curse will fall upon any who disobey. Any child would know that rule. However, just because they knew about it didn't mean they all believed in it. Although they were told they would be cursed, most of the kids actually enjoyed hearing the stories. They simply didn't believe it was true. However, Mion's reaction told me it absolutely was. If they actually did that, of course something would happen to them. She was saying that if someone snuck into the ritual storehouse, that person should be killed.
私がこっちに帰ってきて以降、たまにミヨンとは認識が食い違いますね。そりゃ私だって、西宮殿が迂闊に入っちゃやばいとこだってのは知ってますけど、あんな死に方しても当然だってほどやばいとは思わないんだけど、私たちだってその程度の認識じゃなかったでしたっけ？それは、シオンがよく知らないだけだよ。すみませんね。よく知らなくて。説明をいただいてもよろしいですか？そりゃシオンの言う通り、子供の世界では、やばいとかたたりがあるとか言ったって、どうせ迷信に過ぎないだろう。でも大人にバレたらかなり怒られるんだろうなって程度の認識だと思う。でもね、Hinamizawaの古老たちにとっては、そんな甘いものじゃないの。
Mion explained to me how the elderly people blindly believe in Oyashiro-sama, and how sacred the festivals are to them. It's probably something the younger generations would never understand, but they're possessed by a very strong, deeply rooted devotion toward Oyashiro-sama. Mion then went on to tell me about how sinful it was to violate the rule of the ritual storehouse. I just couldn't believe things like that were still going on even in the modern day. I couldn't even reply appropriately. But, even if it was unbelievable, I couldn't ignore what I was hearing from my twin sister.
なるほどね。でもさ、ミオン。たたりで一人が死んだら、それを相殺する意味で一人を生贄にするのがルールじゃなかったっけ？生贄の死体は出ない。なのに今回は、二人とも死体が出ちゃってるんだけど、そのあたりはどう見る？
Mion doesn't know that besides Takano-san and Tomitake-san, Keiichi and I also snuck into the ritual storehouse, so I tried to lead her a little.
確かに、おかしいね。高野さんの焼死体は見つかっちゃいけなかったってことなのかな？本当は高野さんは失踪ってことになるのがパーフェクトだったのかな？あるいは、自信はないけど。何？根拠なんかいらないから言ってみてよ。怒らないから。
Mion hesitated a little first, and then started to speak.
西宮殿に忍び込んだのは、実は4人とか。それで？で、もう2人は生贄ってことで鬼隠しになってるんじゃないかな。
So information that definitely entered here is out there among sources. Interesting. Oh man, that's the end of that? We have like 2 more questions to go through or some shit like that. I want to hear about Satoshi-kun. I want to know what happened to him. However, I feel like Mion is just like totally holding out on us. Like she's no longer in successor mode. she's kind of just gone back to, like, herself. And she's just being cautious. Which is probably the smart move. Alright, I guess we'll end it here. Of course, my congested self is all fixed up. I apologize for the little mistakes here and there. Like, I had a wicked sneeze before I started recording. And then, like, my allergies were just fucking with me for the majority of the session. Which, I will put the blame on that for any mistakes I made. More so than usual. Let's just roll with it. But anyways, thank you all for watching this episode, and it was as exciting as I thought it was going to be. I did not expect Shion to take the charge here. I thought it was going to be the other way around, yet again, like before, where Shion got punished. I thought it was going to be like that. But nope. Mion is inside a cell. The grandmother is tied up in a wheelchair, and we're calling the shots. Holy shit. It makes me wonder if it's going to remain like that, and Shion is just going to take the place of Mion. Like, she's going to pretend to be both. So she's going to do that shit again, pretend that she's Shion today, because I know Shion, like, survived the day after, or at least from what we saw. Keiichi, Shion were talking, and then Oushi popped up and was wanting to talk with Keiichi. I remember that, and then she said that she was going to go to her job, and then that was that. And then there was the Mion pretending to be Shion on the phone. What if it was Shion the entire time? What if it was? But at that point, she was already pretending, alright, Shion is definitely locked up. I'm Mion now. What if? I don't know. It's too early to say. Things could definitely change around here. I guess we'll just continue on with the grind. Thank you all for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, like I did, be sure to leave a like. I might even like this episode myself, even so I was congested all hell. And subscribe if you'd like to see more. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.